We are live. Welcome, everyone. It is a beautiful Wednesday. For those, I'm in Boston, and we finally have like 65-degree weather, and it's kind of like, you want to get out there with like shorts on when we've had snow all year. So excited to be here. We're going to be talking about out-of-home advertising in 2025, how brands can drive measurable impact. You could spend your time anywhere. You're spending it with us, and we're incredibly grateful. One quick reminder, this webinar is only going to be 30 minutes, so we're going to be moving quick. If you have questions, if we do not get to your question, we will make sure to absolutely personally follow up with you one-on-one with your question. Before we kick things off, we're going to go over and do a little bit of intros real quick. So, Kat, I'll throw it over to you first.
Thanks, Nick. Hi, everyone. I am Kat Canada. I'm the Director of Marketing over at Bobbie. We are the first female, or mom, I should say, mom-founded and led infant formula manufactured right here in the U.S. We are big fans of OneScreen, big fans of out-of-home, so really excited to be here today and kind of share a little bit of what works for us.
Amazing. Aidan, how about yourself?
Yeah, hi, everyone. My name's Aidan Jordi-Donnelly. I am the out-of-home manager at Known Agency, where I lead the planning and activation there. Known is a full-service agency. We were number 6 on Ad Age's A-list this year, as well as 3-time champion of data and insights on the Ad Age Awards.
Amazing. And Greg?
I'm just the guy that was invited here. I am founder here, one of the co-founders here at OneScreen.ai. You'll hear more about this, but an out-of-home advertising tech company where we have aggregated every piece of out-of-home inventory you could possibly imagine, the largest marketplace of both static, digital, experiential ads that move, you name it, and apply technology as an overlay so we can better select inventory as well as measure the impact of your out-of-home campaign.
Amazing. Well, excited. And again, if you have any questions, there's a chat on the right-hand side of the screen. There's a Q&A section as well. Charlie's going to be helping out with that. Big shout out to Charlie for running things behind the scenes here. And we're going to dive in. So again, if we do not get to your question, we will follow up personally. But Greg, I'm going to go over to you to kind of kick this off, and we're going to kind of all talk about this one right here. But for you first, Greg, out-of-home advertising is evolving quickly. I've been in marketing myself for about 15 years, very familiar with out-of-home. But in your mind, why should brands be thinking about out-of-home in 2025? And the second part of that question is, what's changed in how brands are using it today compared to just a few years ago? Because I'm sure you've seen a lot.
So I'll start there. I think a big component of where out-of-home is now versus where it was in the past is the element of performance, right? So yes, does out-of-home fall under the umbrella of brand awareness, brand budget, things like that within an organization. But it's gone from just impression counts and awareness to actually being able to include it within your performance marketing campaigns and mix. That's the biggest component. And that's simply because of technology, the ability to select inventory as part of your campaign using real-time data, accurate data, not only just based off of demographic information, but other audience attributes. So drilling down to things like not only household income, but also consumer behavior, right? And actual movement patterns of the people you want to reach. And that helps dictate better, more accurate inventory. That hasn't always been the case. A lot of it in the past was just sort of, right, spray and pray, a lot of assumptions, a lot of it was subjective. We want to change that, right? We want to make things more consistent, and obviously leveraging data for that. Second part of your question, brands are turning toward it because part of it is out of necessity, seeing challenges in other parts of their marketing funnel, seeing challenges, a lot of the digital marketing that they've been used to over the past decade or so, that perhaps is no longer as efficient as it was. They're seeing diminishing returns, rising CAC, lower LTVs across the board, both B2C and B2B. And so out-of-home is actually a new channel for a lot of those performance marketers. And thus, just by that default, that challenge alone, they're seeking an alternative medium.
Love that. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I'm a big champion of people first. And I think a lot of that, with everything of like that old company first mindset, everything that you talked about aligns well there. Now, Aidan, I'll throw it over to you if you have any additional thoughts on either of those questions.
Yeah, definitely. I think, to give you a layman's answer, out of home is the most recognizable media channel in any of the mix. I can tell you, as you walk to the store, you'll see about 10 of them compared to looking down at your screen and seeing one or two. And then just looking at how it's changed over the years is we've adapted and evolved so much in the placements and abilities of what you can do with each placement. What was once a very static billboardy area is now covered with digital activations, creative dynamic adjustments to accommodate weather or live scores of sport games, or even experiential activations where you have a giant inflatable cutout of Kim Kardashian in Times Square, showcasing her swimwear line. It's just constantly evolving with new mediums to kind of showcase out of home.
Absolutely. Well said. And I know I do see a few questions. Kat, I'm going to throw it over to you to answer that. And then I actually have a follow-up question once you enter that piece.
Yeah. As the brand marketer here, I think what is so appealing of out of home for us is that it's also still cool, right? There's like a cool factor of seeing your brand in bright lights, doing something interesting that media wants to cover. We're seeing a lot of media coverage or earned media around our out of home, which feels different than a social media post, right? When you look at it as part of your collection of your channels from a marketing perspective, it still gets eyes, and there's still this cool factor, and there's still an earned media factor that your other channels, you're not going to get media coverage necessarily on your email, right? Or your social media, where out of home still allows that. So for us, we're always thinking about how can we push it a little bit more. Greg and team, I think, has pulled every possible out of home option for us in the last however many years we've been working with them. And it's just such an interesting way to get your brand out there, to get your campaign out there, to get your point of view out there. That is different than the other marketing channels that you have in your toolbox.
Love that. And actually that goes to my follow-up question, which is a question from the chat. I'm planning to launch out of home for my company. How should I ensure that I'm using the right message to increase the most brand awareness? As a brand marketer, I'm curious on your thoughts there.
Yeah, that's a good question. Historically, if I'm honest, we don't use our out of home necessarily to drive sales. Like we don't have a CTA buy now. I think I can confidently say every out of home moment that we've had is for a bigger purpose. It's for a bigger cultural moment. We had the first ever combo feeding billboard in New York, and combo feeding, for those of you who don't know, it's both breastfeeding and formula feeding. No one has ever done that before. We had an Ashley Graham supermodel on a billboard doing that for the first time. So there's also these moments where you can break through in like a historic moment that is above just the hard sell CTA. It's not necessarily conversion driving, but yet what we have found is that kind of rising tide lifts all boats. When you have that big splashy brand moment that is interesting and cuts through from a messaging standpoint, you will see down funnel conversion. So my suggestion would be go hard on the brand, have it be a true awareness play, and have a point of view, stake your claim, and you'll see that people will come to your brand, your traffic will go up, and ultimately your conversion will go up too.
Amazing. And I'm gonna pass this one to Greg, and then we'll continue on with things. But I think this question's interesting. It is someone that is a very, very data-driven marketer. Greg, I'm curious on your thoughts around the KPIs that brands should use to track and measure the success of out-of-home campaigns.
Yeah. You guys hear me okay? First? All right,
yeah,
good.
Not a little echoey, but still good.
Okay. Just stop me if it doesn't sound right. It's a great question. And to kind of play off what Kat mentioned. So I think the one thing to wrap our heads around is that out of home isn't and should never be looked at as a last touch attribution channel. I think where marketing is heading is that we're looking at contribution to the entire marketing funnel. So that's first and foremost, is that unless you're using a QR code or a vanity URL, tracking the success of a campaign just based off of clicks or scans is not the measure of success that we ever recommend. When we think about measurement, we do want to see how does out of home fit within the overall marketing mix. One way that we help to do this is showing, we use pixel attribution and mobile ID exposure. So everyone's cell phone has a unique mobile ID, and that is turned on if you have location turned on, if you have an app running in the background that is identifying your location. Essentially what we're able to do is we're able to take a billboard, for example. We're looking at an area in front of that billboard where someone was driving by or walking by. and basically had an opportunity to see the board. We're basically capturing a percentage of those mobile IDs and tracking whether or not those mobile IDs were then observed on the company website, on the Bobbie website, or perhaps stepping foot in a particular retail location. So that is directional in nature, right? And again, we're only capturing a percentage of the audience, but that is one way to measure ROI is which units, which formats drove the most incremental lift to the website and or foot traffic. We also compare that to a control group. But number two, there's some other basic ways to do this. One is just overall search traffic to your website, branded keywords, looking at did CPC go, get reduced because of the way we're doing out of home. So all of those things, we want to understand the conversion rates on a website before, during, and after a campaign, especially in the market that you're doing it in.
Amazing. There's some really good questions. And Aidan, I want to ask you this one right here. And Kat, I'd love your thoughts as well. But Aidan, can you touch on out of home being bought programmatically more and more?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's one of the fastest growing trends in out of home for sure. One of the beauties of programmatic out of home is that it can be incredibly turnkey. If you're trying to cover a national campaign and you have a week to do it, programmatic is probably your best outlet there, just because of the ability to turn live in so many different regions, as well as just having access to so much inventory that instead of handpicking and going one by one, you can then find it all in an instant. And the beauty with programmatic is then you can, with our advancements, we can now layer on targeting and demographics and be like, if I want to reach people between ages 18 to 24 in Austin, Texas, with interests in comedy, then I know I'm going to run all the out of home on 6th Street, and I can turn that active in a day. So I think it's more of the ease and the ability to activate so fast is why people are turning towards leveraging programmatic. Sometimes you might pay a higher premium in CPM, but out of home isn't a CPM based campaign. CPM shouldn't be your end all be all decision when planning out of home. It's about the impact and what you're trying to do with your campaign.
Amazing. Kat, anything else you would add to that?
No, I wouldn't. We haven't dabbled in programmatic yet. I will say, just to add to what you were saying, Aidan, though, about the quick turn, we have an all year long digital billboard in Times Square, and we are able to turn that thing every 10 days. So I know at one point, Nick, you were going to ask about how does this fold into your bigger strategy? That's one for us that we literally think this Times Square billboard is now just one of our marketing channels, just like all the others, and we are changing it monthly, and that's so different than how out of home used to be. It was much more of a longer lead time. You have to get the creative over, it has to get up there, it has to stay up for 4 weeks, and that's not true necessarily anymore. So that's something for us as you think about programmatic, or you think you can just digital at large, how can you turn it faster and almost keep up with the pace of the rest of your marketing outputs? And now out of home allows you to do that, which is something really unique that it can provide.
Absolutely. Yeah, really well said. Greg, there's another good question in here about the trends of out of home. And I think we were just kind of talking about it a little, but in your mind, what are the major trends shaping the industry today? This is a question from Chelsea.
Chelsea, it's a great question. To piggyback a little bit, because one of the trends is programmatic, digital programmatic to be specific. And on our end, we're trying to make that buying experience seamless across any format type, static or experiential or other. Digital programmatic is a different way of buying out of home, right? And of course, you're not able to guarantee you're playing on a certain screen. So there are certain things that you certainly want to understand when you're going down the programmatic route versus buying inventory directly, right? Where you're guaranteed a spot in a loop in a given location. So there are some things to keep in mind. I just want the audience to know that it's an excellent use for out of home. But we truly believe it's a full format, full funnel approach. Static and digital together is the ultimate mix. The other, experiential, is another trend. Now, it's not like it's brand new. Experiential has been around a long time. Oftentimes, it's fallen under the PR team, for example. But we're seeing more and more brands leveraging and wanting to leverage experiential. Street teams, wrapped food trucks, tricked out Airstreams. It could be wrapped cars, right? Something that is a little bit nuanced, different, nascent, that can be hyper-targeted, because oftentimes you can plot these in a very specific place and environment. And then you're able to leverage, which is why out-of-home is so great, audience plus context. So experiential, we're seeing a big uptick in that for 2025.
Awesome. There's honestly so many great questions. I think we just kind of continue going with some of these. There's a question here, and Aidan, that maybe you could start off with this, but there's recently been a lot of press about the challenges of GeoPath. What are your thoughts on out-of-home measurement standards, MRC accredited or backed by OAA?
Yeah, definitely.
Question.
It is a great question. I mean, first and foremost, with GeoPath, not everything is audited, right? So that kind of leaves an up in the air thing. For example, like airports where we can't measure it and we're kind of just guessing in some degree. But as Greg alluded to earlier, there's other ways for us to measure beyond GeoPath or standard estimated and delivered impressions. He made a great point. Everyone's got one of these now. Mobile advertiser ID is available for everyone, really. And with that, that's one of our best ways to track measurement across the board. And then the thing is in out-of-home, a lot of people don't even bother asking about it. It's almost as if it's a personal cookie attached to you at all times. That's more accurate. And with that, you can kind of attribute way more levels of measurement and go lower down the funnel. But to go back to the question before I go on a tangent about that, I think it's really just, we have to have a global universal standard of measurement. Right now, we're using GeoPath as a main source of truth. Is it the forever source of truth? I don't have an answer for that, but I think there is a lot of other growing opportunities, like some of the people on this call that are giving us opportunities that can be our universal source of truth for measurement moving forward.
Awesome. Yeah, that was actually one of the other questions when we have a standard measurement for out-of-home globally. So that's awesome. There's a question, I guess, double question from Chris here. And, Kat, maybe you start off with this, but how do you look at place-based media, especially at point of sale or point of service? And do you see more and more advertisers being sniper-like versus broad breadth advertising?
I mean, I could take it. I don't know if I'm the right one to take this. I feel like the pros here are going to be like, Kat's just pulling this one out. I mean, I could speak from what we do, from like a brand perspective, but I think Greg and Aidan, you guys might be better to like actually give Chris what he's looking for. But yeah, I mean, place-based, I think, does fall into place for us. We're thinking about where are ours. We're also, keep in mind, we're pretty niche, right? We're an infant formula company. There's certain people looking for this, which is already small. They move around about the cabin in certain ways, which is pretty small, and not everyone uses infant formula. So part of what, both Greg and Aidan were saying is like, how do we find those people and how do we place in the right spots is obviously always part of what we take into consideration. And like I said, we've asked Greg and team to pull every possible thing. Like, are they on foot? Is it a car? Is it wrapped? Is it just a, big billboard? What is the thing? So that's kind of how we take it into account. But I'm going to pass it to the pros to kind of give you more what you're looking for, Chris, to help you out.
Yeah.
Chris, great question. So place-based media, and I'm going to touch a little bit on the question before, which is a lot of place-based media isn't actually audited and or rated, which can make it a little bit difficult to trust. And I'm just going to speak in real terms with everyone on the call. You have to be very, very careful. And likely, and we recommend working with experts, people who know the industry and know the inventory. Data should help dictate what formats. Place-based and point of sale absolutely has its place. We do a ton of it. We do it with the point of sale screens in a convenience store. It could be screens inside of a grocery store. And if you're a CPG brand and you sell in that store, it makes a ton of sense, right? It always depends. And it's not the greatest answer, but it really does. Who is the advertiser? Who's the brand? What is the objective of the campaign? What's the business case for this? What are they looking to achieve, right? What markets? What season? All of that's going to dictate what inventory is recommended. It always should be backed by data, and it should always be verified by people who know what they're doing, who have bought that media before. And yes, people are becoming more sniper-like, and you can be, especially with that data. And as more and more digital and other static networks come available in different places in the real world, that's where you can start to play with audience plus context. A literal example, and I just saw this, I think this morning, was McDonald's advertising on an EV charging station outside of a brewery, right? And it says, hey, eat McDonald's right across the street. So it makes a ton of sense. And before everyone's thinking that you're coming out of the brewery and you're drinking, the EV charging station is faced outwards towards the parking lot. So it's not just for the drivers, people walking in and out, but that makes a ton of sense. Contextual, relevant, and it's relevant to the audience. That is very sniper-like. So yes, people are, especially on the B2B side too, with target accounts and ABM. You're selling into retailers and finding inventory close to a retailer or an urban panel literally right outside of the entrance to the retailer. So absolutely. Out-of-home didn't have these formats years ago, so you weren't able to be as sniper-like, if you will. But now you can.
Love that. Yeah, honestly, the first thing that I thought of was the ABM piece being on the B2B side of things. But you honestly, great answer. Aidan, I want to throw this one to you because we only got about 8 minutes left. But there's a lot of people that might want to be getting get started. How do I get started? And many brands probably don't know where to start. I know that I've talked to a lot of people and they're just like, okay, I get it. I understand it. It seems like a viable channel, but what do I do? And so what's your advice for a brand launching its first campaign? Like, what are the must-haves before even getting started?
Yeah, totally. I think first and foremost, before even considering out-of-home, it's important to either A, have a great partner or agency who can help you with this, or B, having someone in your internal team that knows the landscape and the channel. Once you have that in place, it's important first to identify your objectives for the campaign. You know, if it is a brand awareness play, then you're going to have certain triggers and levels of measurement that you're going to be looking for in comparison to if you're trying to drive foot traffic or web visits or even conversions at the bottom funnel. Because with that objective in place, you can set yourself up for the proper form of measuring the out-of-home campaign. Second to that would be knowing your audience. As Kat perfectly pointed out earlier, it's making sure you know what DMA you need to be in, what region, and what kind of formats and locations, as Greg just alluded to with point of sale and place-based. You don't want to have your main audience be in Chicago and then you're running an ad in Times Square. It might miss the mark there. And then, lastly, it's really focusing on having creative that stands out. We are in a creative renaissance, is what I would say, with the ability that you can come up with something new every day. And it's really just up to your imagination at this point. If I came to someone and I was like, I want to make a billboard pop off the screen and come right at you, there's a way. It's really like, don't go into it and be safe, because the safe campaigns won't get remembered. Go into it with the formula and the breastfeeding side by side, or put your National Women's Soccer League on Times Square saying everyone just watch, growing sport. Shameless plug for myself.
Great campaign.
Thank you.
Great campaign.
And then lastly, really, really important when planning out of home is how can you integrate it into your other channels in the campaigns, and how can you make this benefit an omni-channel campaign, not just out of home on its own. And whether that's having passbacks in place where you can retarget your out of home audience, or just using it as that brand awareness to better influence your performance marketing. It's just making sure they all tie together and that it's fluid.
Awesome. Fantastic. Let's answer one more question from the audience, and then I have one final question for the three of you. So there's a question from Denise. And Greg, maybe you could start off with this one, and anyone else can jump in as well. But how effective are the 6-second ads that are set to target drivers, as most of these units are on highways?
How effective are the 6-second ads? So one spot in a rotation, Denise, I believe is what you're asking, versus a static unit where you have 100% share of voice. So oftentimes on a 14x48 billboard on the side of a major roadway, one slot would be about 12.5% share of voice. It's a great question. So a couple things. One is dependent on your objective. Ideally, you have a mix of format types. So if it's an all digital campaign versus some static, some not. In terms of effective, it all can be effective. It's going to depend on the location of the unit itself. So really important to do your due diligence on the quality of the unit. Is it a right-hand read? Is it a left-hand read? Is it obstructed? Is there anything behind it? Is there anything in front of it? How crowded is the area around it, right? So how distracting is it? Or is it a wide open, long read, close to the road, not far off the road? How illuminated is it? Those types of components are almost more critical, but a 6-second flip can absolutely be effective. And again, it also comes down to creative, which is, I talked to Charlie about this, just like you go to the gym and you want to maybe, be in better health. Diet is 60% of the battle. 60% of the battle here, if not more, is creative. Cannot stress that enough. But a digital billboard, a 6-second flip can absolutely be effective.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
I agree. And I also would say, how can you use that billboard in other places of your marketing? So yes, it's up for 6 seconds, but what content are you getting around it? Are you doing anything, any kind of, photography, video, anything to then use it at other places? Obviously you want the people driving by to see it, but what about the rest of the rest of the nation who follows you on Instagram or follows you on TikTok or, is on your email list? I think using it as a piece of content through the rest of your marketing is also something to consider when you're thinking about what is effective or how to be more efficient with one piece of content. You can really stretch it across all your channels.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I love that. And I remember, Kat, when you guys did the campaign with Ashley Graham, and I turned around over my left shoulder and it was covered on the Today Show. That's when you do an effective campaign like that, that's the earned media that you can garner from it. It extends just beyond the actual physical location into other channels. And out-of-home is a medium that is unlike no other.
Exactly.
Yes, I'm biased, but I think it is awesome.
Agreed.
Awesome. We've got 1 minute left. I've got one question that I'm going to ask all three of you. Kat, you can go first. Then Aidan, Greg, you will finish it. But in one sentence, what's your biggest prediction for how out-of-home advertising will evolve over the next few years?
I think brands are going to just be more and more bold. I think it's where we're moving from a brand direction too. People and consumers are asking for their brands to take a stance on something, regardless of where you take a stance on. I think you'll see brands be bolder in their imagery, be bolder in their statements. What is the culture shift we're going to see? And brands more than ever are going to have a play in that. So I'm excited to see who's going to do the next big thing that people are going to get people talking about from an out-of-home standpoint that's going to drive culture in one way or the other.
Love that. Aidan.
So I'm going to use a buzzword here, but I think out-of-home is going to be way more data-driven moving forward. It's going to be influenced and backed by AI-powered tools. And I think experiential out-of-home is going to surge in the coming future.
Love that. Greg, take us home.
You knew we weren't going to get out of here without talking about AI. I completely agree with both of you. I think out-of-home is going to become more of an always-on channel. We're going to be leaning way more heavily into it being a data-driven channel and integrating with other parts of digital marketing and other parts of the marketing mix in general. Definitely going to be more powered by AI. I can tell you that firsthand with what we have in R&D. And what we have, being able to target an audience more precisely. Yes, I think programmatic is going to have its place and grow. And then more attribution, more measurable attribution. And being able to really optimize campaigns in real time based on actual data, real-time data. So becoming more of a performance-oriented channel.
Love that. And we actually only made it with 1 minute actually over, which is pretty fantastic. So big shout out to Aidan, to Greg, to Kat. Thank you all for joining us. Again, you could have spent your time anywhere. Hopefully you're walking away with something valuable. We'll send the recording in case you missed anything. And if you want to dive in further, all three we'll be more than willing, I'm sure, to talk to you. So until next time, and by the way, we'll be doing these webinars now monthly. So until next time, we'll see you at the next one. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, all.